Have you ever really stopped to think about it? How does the food you eat, an apple, a sandwich, somehow become the energy that powers your every move, every breath, and yeah, even every single thought you have? Well, today we're diving deep to unlock that exact secret. We're going to follow the journey from food to fuel, right down to the molecular level.
So let's frame it this way. How does an apple become a thought? I mean, it sounds almost like a riddle, doesn't it? But it's not philosophy, it's pure biology. The journey from that bite of fruit to the electrical sparks firing in your brain is one of the most incredible stories in all of science. So let's follow the energy. To really get how this all works, we've got to shrink down. I mean, way, way down. We're going to find the microscopic power plants humming away inside our cells, where all this amazing energy conversion happens. Let's set the scene. Okay, so our journey starts right here, inside just one of the trillions of cells that make you, well, you. But we're not there yet. To find the real action, we have to go even deeper. Because inside these cells, there are these specialized little structures, thousands of them, all working around the clock, just churning out power for the cell. And here we are, the mitochondria. You've probably heard it called the powerhouse of the cell, and trust me, it has earned that nickname. The critical stuff we're about to see goes down right on its folded inner membrane. This is our stage. Now, before the main event, we have to understand the main principle at play here. Back in 1961, a scientist named Peter Mitchell proposed what he called the chemiosmotic theory, and it totally cracked the case. The core idea is that the mitochondria creates this powerful charge by pumping protons, which are just hydrogen ions, out across its inner membrane. It's like charging a battery. This stored potential energy is called the proton motive force. The best analogy, think of a giant hydroelectric dam holding back a massive lake. All that built-up pressure is pure potential energy, just waiting to be released. So if we've got a dam, how do we get the water, or in our case, the protons, piled up behind it? Well, that's the job of this incredibly sophisticated assembly line called the electron transport chain. Here's how it works. High-energy electrons, which we harvested from the food we ate, get dropped off at the beginning of this chain. Then they get passed down a series of protein complexes, kind of like a bucket brigade. And here, this is the crucial part. As the electrons move through complexes I, 3, and 4, these proteins use the electrons' energy to actively pump protons across the membrane. This is what charges our proton battery. But, it's not all one size fits all. Not every electron starts at the same place. Most of them jump on at complex I, which means they power all 3 of those proton pumps. But some electrons from a different energy molecule called FADH2, they get a different entry point. They start at complex 2, which means they completely bypass that first pump. So they contribute a little less to that proton gradient. And that detail actually becomes super important in just a second. Because we understand this level of detail, we can get really precise with the numbers. The main electron carrier, NADH, which starts at the very beginning, well, it generates enough power to make about 2.5 molecules of ATP. But FADH2, since it skips that first proton pump, it yields a bit less, about 1.5 ATP. It's a really cool example of how science gets more and more accurate over time, moving from older, rounder estimates to these much more precise figures. All right, the proton battery is fully charged. That potential energy is just immense. So now it's time for the payoff. How does the cell actually cash in on all this stored energy? The answer is one of the most mind-blowing pieces of molecular machinery you can possibly imagine. This incredible machine is called ATP synthase, and it's not just some passive enzyme. No, it's a genuine, spinning, rotary motor, a turbine. In fact, it's literally known as the smallest molecular motor in the human body. And the design is just so elegant. It has 2 main parts. You've got the F0 complex, that's the rotor, and it's embedded right in the membrane. Then there's the F1 complex, which is the stationary head that sticks out into the middle of the mitochondria. And connecting the two is the central stalk called the gamma subunit, which acts like a bent axle. And that bent shape, that's the secret to everything. So how does it work? It's called the binding change mechanism. All those protons we pumped out are now rushing back in through the only door open to them, that F0 rotor. This flow of protons makes the rotor and its bent axle spin like crazy. Now, because that axle is bent, as it spins, it bumps against the inside of the stationary head, physically forcing its parts to change shape.
And that mechanical, shape-changing force is so powerful, it literally squeezes a used-up ATP molecule, that's ADP, and a phosphate ion back together. Boom, a brand new molecule of ATP is created. It's mechanical rotation being converted directly into chemical energy. It's just amazing.
Now, this incredible process isn't just running wild all the time. Oh no, it's a super tightly controlled system that responds directly to what your body needs moment by moment. And this is where we connect this tiny, microscopic world right back to your own life. The principle is called respiratory control. And what it means is that this whole assembly line, the electron transport chain, the ATP motors, it's all tied to how much ADP is available. Remember, ADP is the used version of ATP. The system is based on demand. It only makes what's needed, which makes it remarkably efficient. So think about this. Why do you breathe harder when you exercise? It's all because of this perfect supply and demand system. When you're just sitting there resting, your ATP levels are high, so you don't have a lot of that used ADP floating around. That's the signal for the whole process to slow down. But the second you start exercising, you burn through ATP, creating a flood of ADP. This signals the assembly line to kick into overdrive. Electrons flow faster, more protons get pumped, those motors spin at incredible speeds, and you start consuming way more oxygen at the end of the line to keep the whole thing going. So as we wrap this up, just think about this for a second. Right now, as you're sitting here listening to this, there are quadrillions upon quadrillions of these tiny molecular motors spinning inside your cells. They're generating the very energy that allows you to listen, to learn, and to think. It's the most direct and elegant power source imaginable. So the only question left is, what are you going to do with all that energy?